Hi everyone, Ravi this side. Welcome to Engineering Adda. Today in this video we are going to discuss about the client side interceptor. So what is client side interceptor? How we can implement it out in this Spring Boot application? We are going to discuss that. Before going to discuss about the client side interceptor implementation, let me try to tell you that there is a video on my channel where we have discussed about the interceptor. What is interceptor? Its basic understanding, how we can use it, where we can use it, and what are the different type of interceptor we have, its advantages, how it help us in cross-cutting concern. So everything we have discussed in that introduction video, so please watch that. I will provide the link of that video in the description of this video so you can directly go there and watch it out. Now coming to the client side interceptor implementation, what we are going to do is we are going to develop two Spring Boot application. One will act as a client, another will act as a server, and the client is going to consume one of the API of the server. And then we are going to implement the interceptor at the client side and then see how the HTTP requests and the responses are being sent and received at the client side. We are also going to see the method, the headers, everything we are going to see about the HTTP request and the responses related to the API that we are going to call at the client side. Okay, so this is what we are going to discuss today. So let's get started for that. And let me try to go to the next slide to show you how we can implement the client side interceptor. So we discussed about the interceptor, cross-cutting concern, and now coming to the different types of interceptor we have. The first one is client side that we are going to discuss here. So the client side interceptor, these are used for intercepting and modifying HTTP requests and responses when making outbound call to the third party API. Okay, so this third party API will be coming from the server side application and will develop a client side application which will consume this third party API. So we can see that we are going to use this client HTTP request interceptor interface to implement the interceptor at the client side. So let's get started and let me try to first of all go to the IntelliJ and try to develop the server application first, and then we'll try to develop APIs there, and then we are going to use that API. We are going to consume that API in the client side. So this is what we are going to discuss. So let me try to open the IntelliJ here. It will take few seconds of time to load the IntelliJ. So just wait for that. And once it is loaded, we can go and directly go, like this is the IntelliJ Ultimate version. We can directly create our Spring Boot application here itself. So you not have to go to the Spring IO and create your application. If you are using IntelliJ Ultimate version, you can directly create your application here itself. So go to the file, new project, and just create one application. Let's say you can say third party app, or you can say server side app, something like that. Server app. Okay, just select the map one here and go next. Try to include couple of starter dependency like Lombok and web, and then create it out. Just open it a new tab. Let me try to close this one, and yeah, just wait for a few seconds. Once it will download all the dependency that we have added, it will configure our application. Then we can start doing our development here. So just wait. I think it's done. Now let me try to go to the source main, go to the Java, and here we have our application. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a API that is going to return the uh, list of student name. Okay, and that API we are going to consume in our client application. Okay, so let me try to create that. So if you want to create it, you can create the same thing in the controller layer itself, or if you want to create following the MVC pattern, you can also create the service layer entity and all those things. So I'm not going to waste your time here. I'm going to create a controller, and there itself we'll try to hard code couple of values, student names, and then we'll try to create a list. We'll put that there and then try to get the result. So I'm not going to create different layers here. You can do that, but I'm directly going to create a controller, and then from the controller itself we'll try to pass this list of student name, and then we'll try to get those details. So let me try to create a controller here. So let's say it is a server controller, and just annotate this with at the rate rest controller. Now let me try to create one API called get mapping, and it is, let's say server. Now let me try to create a method which is returning the map of a string of object, and get student details. Okay, now just let me try to create one map here. Let's say a map of a string of object. Let's say its name is map, new has map is its implementation. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a list of string, and import this list from Java util, and then let's say it is list of a student, new array list, import the array list as well. Now let me try to add couple of a student's name here. So let's say it is let's say Raman, and list of a student dot add, let's say the other name is Rahul, and then list of student name dot add name, let's say it is Aman, and let me try to add couple of more names like Ashok. So let it be like four names we are adding here, four student we are adding here, and we are good now. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these values in the map. So just let's say map dot put student details as a key, and then as a value we are going to put this list of student here, and then simply going to return this out. So we are good now. Let me try to run this application and try to hit this API and see how it is working. So just wait for a few seconds. It will be up in few seconds, and then we can hit it out. Okay, I'm getting some error here. Could not find or load main class. I'm not sure if this application is correctly created or not. Let me try to close this and try to open this up and again and then see. So just open this IntelliJ. I'm not sure. Sometime this happens. The application that we create is not created correctly, and we lose up on the files that we create. But yeah, let me try to see how it is. Okay, so you can see that the things are not there, right? So the application that we created is not created correctly, and it's crashed now. So what I'm going to do, we have the files, don't worry on that. I'm going to create a new application again and then see. So just create a new file, new project, and let's say its name is server application, server side app, something like that, and select the map one here, go next, Lombok, and web as a starter dependency, create it out and just open it in a new tab, wait for a few seconds, and after that we'll see. Load Maven project and just wait. So I think it's resolved the starter dependency. Okay, it is resolving it. I think everything is done. Now let me go to the source main and go to the Java, go to the server side application and try to run this here itself. So if it is created correctly, it will run here, and then we can start doing our development here. So just wait. I think it is up, but seems like 8080 port is occupied, so don't worry on that. Our application is created correctly. So let me try to do one thing. Let me try to copy paste this piece of code that we developed there. So what we did is we created this server controller, and there itself we have all those things, so don't worry. So I'm just going to copy this piece of code, go to the new application that we created, and here let me try to create a controller called server controller, and then we'll try to paste this thing, and we are good. Let me try to close this erroneous application that we developed. So let me try to close it out, and then we'll going to use this server side application. Okay, so just run this application, and then we'll try. Okay, so let me try to stop it because the 8080 port is already occupied, so we need to point to some other port in order to run our application. So go to this application.properties file, and here let me try to change the port number to 8081, something like that. Server dot port, let's say 8081. Okay, now run this application. This time it will up on the port number 8081, and then we can hit our API there. So go to our app controller, and here you can see we have the API. Just click on this, and it will open up a terminal for you where you can hit your API. So just hit this out, and then just wait for a few seconds. You can see in the response we are getting a map of a string of object, and in the object we have the list of student name, and the key for this is student details. Okay, so we are working good now. This API that we developed is working fine, and we have our server side application ready. Now what we need to do is we need to create a client side application, and then we'll try to call this API that we developed at the server side in the client side. And after that, I will try to implement the interceptor there to see the request and the responses. So just let me try to create a new project. Let's say it is a client side application, and just select the Maven here. The same dependency you need to add Lombok and the starter web, and then just create it, open it in a new tab, wait for a few seconds, and let it install all the starter dependency and do the necessary configuration so that we can start doing our development. So just wait for a few seconds, and once it is done, we'll try to do the development here. So I think it is good. Now go to the source main Java, and here we have the application. Before going to run this application, I already know that my 8080 port is occupied, so I'm going to change the port number for this application as well. So just let me try to change the port number to server.port from 8080 to 8082. Okay, so our server side application is pointing to 8081, and the client side application is pointing to 8082. Okay, and now I'm running my application. If it is created correctly, so that we can start doing our development here. So you can see that it is up on the port number 8082, and we are good now. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a service layer and a controller layer here in the client side. So let me try to do that. So let's say I'm going to the application, create a student service. Okay, and just annotate this with @service annotation, and we are going to call the server side API that we developed here inside this service. So this is the API we have, and our server side application is pointing to the port number 8081 locally. So this is the URL. So I'm just going to copy this out, we'll need this URL in order to call it out. So just let me try to create a variable here. Let's say static final string. Let's say it is URL. I'm just directly going to hard code it out. You can put it somewhere in the application.properties file, and from there you can fetch it out through value. So you can do those things, but directly here, this is not the purpose of the video. We are going to see how the interceptor work, right? So that is why I'm just going to develop this application as fast as I can, and then we will see the interceptor. So here we have the URL, and now the second thing that we need is we need a REST template in order to call a third-party API. So for that, what you need to do is you need to create a bean of the REST template. So just let me try to create the bean of let's say public REST template, get template, and then return a new REST template here. So we are good. We did the configuration for the REST template. Now we can use this REST template in the service here. So just going to auto wire the let's say private REST template, and we are good. Now I'm going to create a method that will return the list of student name. Okay, so let me try to create the method. Let's say public map of a string of object, and then let's say it is get student details, and we are good. Let me import the map here and remove this. And what other things we need is, yeah, what we are going to do is using the REST template, we are going to call the third party API. Okay, so how you can call that? So I'm going to use this exchange method. So just exchange, it will take four parameters. One is URL, the second one is HTTP method that you are going to call, and then HTTP entity, and then it will ask you for the return type of this API that you're going to hit. Okay, so those four details you need to pass here. So the first one is URL that we already have, and then what we need to do is we need to pass the method that we are going to call. So in this case, the method that we are going to call is of get type. If you'll go to this server side application, you will find it out. Let me show you. So if you'll go to the server side application, you will find that uh, the API that we developed is of get mapping, and it is a get API. So that is what you need to provide here. The method name, which is a get here. Now the other thing that we need to do is we need to pass the HTTP entity here. So let me try to create a HTTP entity here. So just HTTP entity, and let's say it is of map of string comma object, and let's say HTTP entity equal to new HTTP entity, and we are good. And here we need to pass the HTTP headers inside this HTTP entity. Okay, so how we can do that? So for that, let me try to create a HTTP headers method. So let's say public HTTP header. If you don't know how to call the third party API, there's a video on my channel where I discussed about this. So you can go there and watch it out so that you will get the understanding of it. Now let me try to create the HTTP headers object here, and let's say add couple of headers here. Let's say I'm going to uh, if you want to like set your custom fields in the headers, you can do that, but I'm going to set the content type as application JSON, so I'm going to do those things here. And let's say okay, it is set, not set header, and nothing else we are going to do. Let me try to do a return here. So I'm going to return the HTTP headers object that we created. So we are good, and these things we need to pass inside this HTTP entity. So let me try to call this get header, and we are good. And we have to pass this HTTP entity, and then what we need to do, we need to pass here what thing we are expecting out of this API call. So we are expecting a map of a string of objects. So that is why we are going to put this as a map here, map.class, and we are good. And then if we have the response, we are going to create a variable called response, and we're going to catch the response that we're getting here, and then we'll try to return the response dot get body. Okay, let me try to explain you what all things we are doing here so that you will be more clear. Okay, so what we are doing here is we are creating one method which is going to call the API of the server. Okay, and in order to call this server side API, we are going to use this REST template exchange method. This REST template exchange methods needs this four parameters. The one is URL, the API that you are going to call, and what its type, and then it will require the HTTP entity and uh, the return type of this API that you are going to call, which is map of a string of object. That is why we are putting map.class here. So that four parameters we have. Now coming to the HTTP entity, how you can create it out is this, and here what you are expecting out of this method or URL that you are calling, that you have to put here, and in the HTTP, when you are creating the object of HTTP entity, you have to pass this headers here. So for that only we created this get headers method, and it is simple. It is simply returning HTTP headers, and we are setting only content type to application JSON here. If you want to add the additional custom headers in your HTTP headers, you can do here. Okay, so these headers are nothing but these are the request headers that are going to be used in order to call this URL. So when you are going to call this URL, these headers will be going to the server side. These headers are going to send on the server side. Okay, now we are good, and let me try to create a controller class here. So just create let's say client controller, and what we are going to do, REST controller, and then simply here also we are going to create a get mapping, and let's say it is client, and it is also doing the same thing. It is internally going to call the student service of the client side. Okay, so the return type is map of a string of object, get student details, and let me try to import the map here, and the second parameter is object here. Now we need to call the service method that we created. So for that I'm going to auto var the instance of the uh, student service. Okay, so private student service, and we are good. Now with the help of this student service, I'm going to call the method which is get student details, and then simply return it out. Now everything is looking good for me. Now if you'll go to this server side application, it is running. Okay, you can see that, and I'm going to also make our client side application up and running. So just run this application. Okay, so it is, yeah, run this application, and just let's see how it is working. So you can see that our client side application is also up, and it is up on the port number 8082. Now if you go to the controller, you will find this API. Just click on it, and here we have the URL ready. I'm just going to run this and then see. So in the response, you can see that at the client side, we are able to get the response that of the API what we are sending, what we are receiving at the server side. So this response is coming at the client side also, right? The same response we are also getting at the server side, and through this server API, and the server API internally we are calling to the client side, and we are getting the same result. That means we are able to make a correct call to the server side application or to the server side API that we developed, and we are getting the same result at both of the server side and the client side. So we are good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to implement the interceptor here, and then we'll see how the HTTP request responses are working at the client side. So let me again go back to the PPT that we developed here, and you can see that in order to create a client side interceptor, what you need to do is you need to have a implementation of this client HTTP request interceptor interface. So for that, let me try to copy this and come here and create a custom interceptor here. So let's say it is custom client side interceptor, and good. Just implement this HTTP request interceptor, client HTTP request interceptor, and here you can see that you need to implement one unimplemented method. So just implement it out, and it is an intercept method that is being passed as HTTP request body and the execution as a argument here. So let me try to, first of all, what we are going to do is we are going to print a couple of things here which is coming from the request, HTTP request, and then see. So just let me try to print out the whole request here, and then let me try to print out the other things like URL, and let's say it is get URI, the URL that you're calling, and then let's say method, and then the headers as well. So okay, and then what we are going to do is we are going to use this execution. So just execution dot execute, and then request and body that we need to pass here, and we'll get the response here when we are going to call the request, and we are passing the body in the execute method of the execution. So let me try to catch this in the response here, and I'm also going to print out this response, and then print out couple of more things like response dot get headers, and then let's say response dot status code, and status text, something like that, and also the body. So I'm just going to log as much as information I can so that we'll get the more understanding of the concept of interceptor here. So just okay, and then simply I'm going to return this response that we have. So we are good. Now let me try to so here what we did is we created one interceptor class which is known as custom client side interceptor, which is implementing the client HTTP request interceptor. And when you are going to implement this interface, we have one unimplemented method which is intercept, and we need to implement that method in the class here. It is being passed with request body and the execution client HTTP request execution. So we are logging the request, its methods, headers, and URL, and then we are trying to execute the this request and passing the body here in the execute method of the execution, and have the response here, then printing out the details from the response and simply returning the response here. So this is how you can create your custom client side interceptor. Now the second thing that you need to do is you need to register this custom client side interceptor in your REST template. So if you'll go to the main application here where we created the bean of REST template, we are simply creating an object of REST template and returning it out. Now we need to configure our this custom client side interceptor to the REST template. So how you can do that? Let me try to create a object of REST template builder here, pass this object, and then you have to register it out. So just return, let's say, yeah, return REST template builder dot. You have to add the additional interceptor, and inside that you need to register your, like you need to pass your interceptor, custom interceptor that you created. So our case it is custom client side interceptor, and then we have to build this REST template builder, and we are good now. So we are good now. Let me try to run this application again and try to hit our API and then see what all things we are printing here. Okay, so we are good. Our server side application is already up and running, so we don't have to start this, and we are up on the client side as well. Now let me try to call this API. Okay, and then hit it out. We are getting the response. Now go to the console, and if you'll see in the console, you can see that let me try to go to the interceptor first. So this is the interceptor, and what things we are logging, let me try to show you. So first things that we are logging is request, and we are getting the object of the request, so don't worry on that. And then what we are logging is request URI. So in the request, which API we are calling. So if you'll go to your this client side controller, and if you'll go to this method, get student details, at the service level, you can see that we are calling this URL. At the URL, you can see that we are calling the server side API. So that is what we are getting here. This is our request containing this URL that we are going to call, and the method that we are going to call is get. And then in the headers, we have accept application JSON, and content type we set this one that we are getting, and this additional things are already added there by the Spring Boot itself or this template itself, so don't worry on that. But we added this content type. If you want to add some custom let's say headers, so what you can do is you can go to your student service, go to the get headers method, and there you can add this out. So let me try to do that thing as well. So let's say set let's say username, and I'm going to set the username as ABC. Okay, and run this application again and then try to hit this out. Okay, so go to the, so we are going to hit this client API, and we're getting the result. Go to the console, and this time if you'll go there to the headers, you can see that this is the custom headers we added, and we are getting that thing. Okay, so this is like we are logging the URL method and headers of the request that we are trying to create when we are going to call the server side API. So this is our request. Now in the response, let me try to show you what we are getting. So the first thing that we are printing here is, if you'll go to the custom client receptor, at the response we are printing the response, and then after that we are printing the header, status code and all. So coming here, this is the response, and then we are printing the headers. So this is the response header, and it also contains the application JSON and then transfer encoding chunk. This also contains the dates, keep alive, timeout, connection, all those things are there. So this is the response header, and then after that what we are printing from the responses is status code, which is 200. Okay, and then we are printing the get status text that we are not getting anything here. We'll check on that. And also we are printing the get body, and we are in the body we are also not getting much information. This is a kind of Java object we are getting. So this is how what you can do is you can add the interceptor, and then you can try to have the loggings of the request and the response of the API that you are calling from the third party at your client side. Okay. Now, if you want to make some changes here at the request level or at the response level, if you want to do some modification, you can directly do here at the interceptor level. Okay. And another thing is if you want to apply, let's say, compression, so you can add those details here in this interceptor class. And here you can see that, let me try to tell you that this interceptor level is not, this interceptor that we created is not only for one API. In this example, we just created one API to showcase you the whole purpose of the interceptor. But this is not in real, right? In real, your server application that you're calling, you might be calling let's say 100 of APIs from the server side at your client application. So for all of them, this interceptor will work. Okay. So if you are going to put a centralized logging mechanism or centralized exception handling mechanism, that you can do here at the interceptor class. Okay. And it will work for all of the APIs that you are calling from the server side application. It might be 100,000. So for each of the APIs, you don't have to put the logging, put the exception handling. You can directly create an interceptor, and at the interceptor level, you can do those tasks. Okay, that is what the purpose of interceptor, and this is how you can implement the interceptor. Now, if you want me to show you how you can handle the exception at interceptor level, so let me know. I will create a separate video on that, and then in that video, we'll try to explain how to handle the exception at the interceptor level. So this is about the video, guys. If you like the video, please hit the like button and please subscribe the channel for more such content. Thanks.